Anyway, I watch watch this guy talking about life in Auckland, and he was, I believe, he's from Johannesburg, and he gives his view of life in New Zealand from Auckland's perspective, and he talks about the transport and getting around in New Zealand like an expert. He talked about other subjects, housing. He talked about the beaches here in New Zealand, and as lovely as he is, he's a bit clueless on what's past the Bombay Hills, as they say. You know, in New Zealand we say Auckland is Jaffa, J-A-F-F-A, just another Aucklander. And in Johannesburg, South Africa, we look at Johannesburg people as the same. I don't know about England, English people. Do they really look down on Londoners? People from Manchester, people from Birmingham. A lot of jokes on that part. Anyway, let's talk about transport. People who come to New Zealand and how to get round. I get round every way in New Zealand. Buses in New Zealand. City buses. All the major centres, Auckland, Hamilton, Wellington. Palmerston North has dramatically improved its bus services, and Christchurch, Hutt Valley of course is Wellington, and Dunedin. To use a city bus is normally easy, and most of them just take your credit card. Some you have to use cash with. Trains you often have to use cash. I don't know why that is in Wellington, because they go through tunnels and you can't use a credit card. I don't know, maybe theft. But you can often use credit cards on buses. You just pay wave, and it's so easy. You look it up on Google Maps and it tells you exactly when the bus is coming, just like a real big city. And you know, like in South Africa, you take minibus taxis. And in Cape Town, if you live in Cape Town, the water, what's it called, Greenpoint, Camps Bay, down Newlands through to Constantia, you can take minibus taxi. They're relatively frequent and safe. But here in New Zealand, we don't have minibus taxis. Trades, once again, trades are really only Auckland and Wellington. Christchurch doesn't really have a train service for getting around. And I took a train 2 weeks ago from, I had meetings at the Beehive and at one of the political parties' meetings rooms, and a famous somebody I had a meeting with. And so I had to be on time for the meeting, so I took the 6:15 train from Palmerston North, which is about 100 kilometers from Wellington, to Wellington. And it's 6:15, it's only twice a day type train. And it was a second-hand train from Britain from the 1970s. I was talking to a guy from the railways. So the train system in New Zealand is really old-fashioned. The train looked nice, they'd done it up inside, but the guy said, guy who worked for the railways said, I was sitting with him as we got closer to Wellington, he said, it's a 1970s train. So local trains in Auckland are okay. Trains in Wellington are really quite good. You know, you go up to Featherston, I think they even go up to Greytown, and they go up to Waikanae. So that's how you get round. Buses long distance here in New Zealand. The guy just talked about Auckland, but let's talk about buses. Intercity buses. It's from here to Dunedin, it's about a 2-hour drive by car. But by bus, it's a 3-hour drive. And I don't know how much it is, but Wellington to Palmerston North, it's about $40 by train or by intercity bus. And to me, that's expensive. And it's hey, you haven't used buses for a long time, someone just said to me on the comments. Most Kiwis don't do it. I was in Thailand when I was coming back to New Zealand, and I looked up Facebook Marketplace, and how long does it take for a bus from here to Queenstown? I'm watching from Auckland. Hey, how are you? I think it's about 3 hours to 3 to 4 hours to Queenstown from Invercargill. I get all these comments coming through on my really quite expensive to get round. In Europe, it's about €30 to fly around Europe by plane if you book your ticket ahead. €30 is about 400 Rand, 500 Rand. And to get around South Africa, I've just bought a bunch of airline tickets to fly around South Africa. It's going to cost me about $150 every time I get on a plane. And from Cape Town to Dunedin, it's a 2-hour flight, $150. 2 hours, 1,500 Rand. Here, I'm flying from Auckland to Invercargill on the 3rd of January. It's going to cost nearly $500. Now in South Africa, if you ever go to South Africa, $500 is, I think, for about $800, $600 you fly to Europe. New Zealand, it's really expensive to fly around. They have Jetstar. Jetstar closed down, but they're trying to reopen it here. Jetstar is an Australian company which is trying to open up here. It can be cheaper to fly from this is crazy, from Queenstown to Sydney than back to Auckland. You know, it's cheaper to fly. And when you go to London, if you go to England, and you want to travel around England by bus or train, it can be cheaper to fly to Amsterdam by plane for €30 and fly to, say, Edinburgh or Glasgow on GoJet so it's a trip for £60. There was a student in England who was living in who was commuting every day to Europe to get to his college because it was cheaper to commute via Europe. Now talk about biking. For those who want to come around, a lot of cycling in many parts of the world is a serious sport now. Auckland and Wellington not so much. They're trying to get it in. Christchurch, Invercargill, Palmerston North, they have cycle lanes, and if you're a really serious cyclist, you can hoop along these cycle lanes. And it's faster to cycle in some of these cities. I had a guy who I worked for in Los Angeles. He was spending, he went to work by limousine normally. He earned about $50 million a year. But he would bike to work in Los Angeles and he'd be faster than the limousine. But he just loves, yeah, €50, yeah, $55. It's cheaper to travel around Europe, nail punch. It's cheaper to live in Europe and commute to London or a major city in England than it is to live. And that's how it is in New Zealand. I do these lives sporadically on my TikTok. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, on the 20th of July, however long ago that was, nearly a month, I flew from Invercargill to Wellington, and that cost me, I booked my ticket, it's a relatively cheap ticket when I booked. It cost $120 New Zealand dollars, $125. I travel with very little luggage. And then I took the train from Wellington to Waikanae. I had a couple of meetings in Wellington to Waikanae. And Waikanae is about 40 minutes to an hour out of Wellington by train. And then I hitchhiked. And to set up my hitchhike, my live on TikTok, it takes me a few minutes. Hitchhiking, grey hair, well I haven't got too many grey hairs. Hitchhiking, oh, nobody picks up hitchhikers. Nobody picks up hitchhikers. Before I could go on live, a lady picked me up. She was about 50 years of age, by herself. A lady picked me up hitchhiking by herself. I was telling my niece, my godchild, who's got PhD in engineering, digital engineering or something like that. She works for the New Zealand Statistician Board. A smart young woman. She's got a master's degree and a PhD in engineering from Lincoln and Canterbury University. She said, nobody will pick you up hitchhiking. I said, of course. As I said, I get picked up faster. I get picked up faster hitchhiking than I could go on live. Then she dropped me off at Tehoki, T-E, capital H-O-K something. I can't remember. A little village. I didn't really want to. And by the way, somebody said to me, why are you hitchhiking? Haven't you got family to pick you up? My brother Chris offered to pick me up. He lives about an hour from where Waikanae train stops. And I said, if I don't get picked up, I'll phone you, Chris. Anyway, I go to this next town called Hoki and Tehoki. Tihoro, maybe. I think it's Tihoro. T-E-H-O-R-O. I struggle with English. Little old Maori. Maori is very similar to Japanese. If you if you want to learn the language, I should have, you know. And so I started hitchhiking, and then my niece couldn't believe it. A 50-year-old lady on her own. She said, "What sort of stupid lady is that? She's going to be attacked and hurt and maimed." No, anyway, then the next thing is, I start hitchhiking from this little village, little town, just a corner in the road, with a restaurant and a shop, and I get picked up before I can go on my TikTok live, and she gave me a lift to about 10 kilometers down the road to Otaki, I think. Otaki. And she dropped me off in the center of the town, or near, just on the outskirts where I could get a little ride. And hey Steve. And I got picked up again. A guy went, hey, come here. What's that for? And I was telling my niece, she couldn't believe it. She said, nobody I know would pick up a hitchhiker. Anyway, a gentleman who was a courier driver, retired, 70 years of age, he picked me up and took me to Palmerston North and dropped me off at my address. He had 3 other drops in Levin and Palmerston North. Anyway, my niece is getting quite flabbergasted, you know, that I would do such a horrendous thing, and what stupid lady would pick me up hitchhiking. So I take her over to my 90-year-old mother at her birthday party. And I say, hey Mum, you know when you pick up hitchhikers, do you pick up one or two? And she said, I prefer to pick up two hitchhikers at a time because you hope that one would be a good person. But there was a time I picked up a guy, he was walking down the street, it was starting to rain, and I gave him a lift to the supermarket, and he smelt of some sort of fragrant smell of tobacco. I don't know what sort of tobacco. My mum's a bit wise. He was smoking. So that's hitchhiking in New Zealand. Let's talk about buying a car in New Zealand. I was in Thailand and I needed to buy a car when I got to New Zealand. Something I could travel with, and if I needed to be, hey Jade, if I needed to be, buy a car. So this girl was selling a Ford, a Honda Orthea. Buying a Honda Orthea selling a Honda Orthea as a camper vehicle. It's this little station wagon made by Honda. Anyway, she wanted like $1,000 for it, and it was first generation camper van. Anyway, my nephew, who's a panel beater, had a look at it for me, and she quite liked him, and he said it's worth nothing. Give her $200 for scrap. Anyway, she had some whole lot of new stuff. She was a student. Hey Decide, haven't seen you for so long. Decide, I think's in Palmerston North. I hitchhiked Decide from Waikanae to Palmerston North last month. Anyway, I bought this camper van. Look, a camper had all her camping stuff in it, which wasn't great stuff, cheap stuff from the warehouse, which is like Macro or Walmart. And I kept that for like 8 months till it needed I had to scrap it. And then I bought another car for $500, and I camped in that for another 18 months. So you don't have to spend a lot of money on cars to get something. So then I started learning what I wanted to do, and I bought a car. The next vehicle I bought was straight from Japan. It had 30,000 kilometers on the clock. I turned it because of the pandemic. I needed it to live in very quickly. We were up at Auckland. We got stranded on what's the beach called? Hatfield Beach for 3 months, and it was wonderful. So funny story, you know, the lady wasn't from overseas, she was from Auckland, and the only thing she knew was from Auckland. And I went to a big political meeting in Invercargill. There was a lot of union bosses, and this lady had come down from Auckland, and she was a union boss, and she was going to be working in, I can't remember, Invercargill or Gore, and she wanted to get a bus daily from Invercargill to Gore. There isn't any. You know, if you're going to live in a rural town like Invercargill, Gore, they have very little public transport out of the 4 or 5 major cities. So if you're going to come to New Zealand, you need to have transport. I'm telling my son, get his license in South Africa for $500, 500 euro. You can even pay a bribe to get your license for that amount of money. But by the way, Jade, you're right. There's a young group of Bogan-esque ladies. They have an up-and-coming bus service. You know, people mock bogans, rednecks, I don't know what you want to call them, car people. And there's a group of bogan ladies who are into their hot rod cars, dragster cars, and they've got, what's it called, Jade, is called Destination South or something like that. The bus company's called Destination South. It's not really affordable for a commute, I imagine. I'm just guessing, I don't know what price, but if you want to get up to Queenstown or across to Dunedin faster, a little bit better, these ladies are running a fantastic bus service. You know, you could run, frankly, I should have turned my old Grand into a bus service because it's such a comfortable vehicle. 30,000 kilometers, it would have been an excellent bus service. But that's all I got to say. I have a phone conference call to do in a minute. I'll chat to you later. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you like what I say, it's a bit of fun, it's from experience, go for it. Just a footnote, New Zealand, do not think of breaking the law when you're driving. You will lose your license. Alright, now if you do break your law, do not be foolish enough to offer a traffic officer, policeman, a cool drink like you would in South Africa. You will go to jail. Just a footnote.